I'm Petra. I had a vaginal birth after 3 cesareans. I'm a VBAC doula and birth educator, and I feel called to tell you that you deserve the birth experience that you want. I want you to join me every week to hear empowering birth stories, heart-led conversations, practical tips, evidence-based information, and yes, we definitely dive into the woo side of things too. My hope is for you to leave each episode feeling inspired and informed. Thank you so much for including me on your journey to be back. Now let's get into this episode. Hello, and welcome back. I am so excited to give you part 2 of Lizzy's story. Now, if you missed last week, go back and listen to part 1 of Lizzy's story. It is incredible. She had a hospital VBAC, and then the story you get to hear today is her free birth story. It is just so incredible and so inspiring to witness someone and get to talk to someone who was so completely transformed by their birth experience and had such an empowering experience. So get ready to listen. It's so good.
So history kind of repeated itself in the way that I found myself pregnant again at like 10 or 11 months postpartum before my son's first birthday. And that for after like me and my husband, like you had mentioned, we're high school sweethearts. We've been together like 11 or 12 years. And I mean, at this time, maybe like 10, right? But after that birth, not even just like the sexual trauma, but like all of the issues that happened within me, once mom's affected, the whole family's affected. Okay. So me and my husband, like everything, I just felt like our marriage was just torn apart. Not, I don't know what I had expected him to do in those situations. If I wasn't able to, give him the knowledge to stand up for me and him, I don't hold it against him now, of course. But I was just, there's this like subconscious like thing of like, you failed me twice. And I'm not saying that's what he did. That's just like that feeling I think a lot of us feel. I don't think many of us put words to it because I never said that. I never thought like you failed me, but I could tell that's kind of what was lingering is like you watched me go through these things and you did nothing basically. And it just other stuff, life. We had 2 kids under 2. Everything was really hard. So me and my husband's marriage was very rocky. And
Yeah.
so right before I got pregnant, I actually thought we were going to divorce. I was like, and I never had felt that way. Not the way I had at that point. And so I, got pregnant. And this time I thought it was like a total, I don't want to say like miracle, but it definitely was just shocking how it happened. And it's like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. But in my mind, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be pregnant. I remember taking the test. Like with the other 2, it made sense. But this one, I was like, I'm taking this because I missed my period. With my boys, I took them before I missed my period. This was the first baby I missed my period. And I was like, look, like, I'm probably not pregnant. I'm going to take it. And I mean, I'm just going to take it to make sure. And because I was just so convinced I wasn't. I don't know. Anyway, so I ended up being pregnant. And that's when me and my husband, well, it took a couple weeks through a lot of issues. Like I was sick and I ended up going to the hospital really early because I was literally just with the 2 kids now, it was even harder. Um, and then the sickness, I was like almost basically passing out every day. And at one point I was like, dude, I got to go to the hospital and get like IV or something. And I thought maybe I had ectopic or something because of how bad it was, but everything was fine. And I decided, well, I guess just we decided to work on things and that we're going to give it our shot. And and thankfully things really did come together. But what I was scared of, so one of the things, my theme in this pregnancy was like, um, I remember a teacher telling me, and I think this is a famous quote, but the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I was like, listen, I tried the hospital and I tried home birth with a midwife. Listen, I tried. So now we have to try something different. And, I had listened to free birth and all this and that. And I wasn't afraid of it. The biggest fear that I had with free birth was, I mean, it wasn't if my, I mean, obviously, I think the biggest fear generally is if something happens to your baby. I mean, that's just on this table, right?
Right.
But I didn't think free birth would kill me or my baby. I didn't think that that's what would happen. I just thought if that happens and I free birth, are people gonna bring their, torch and pitchforks to me?
Right.
And be like, you effed up, you did that, and then I would, then not only am I've lost my baby, but now, or something, even something bad happened, like a brain injury or something. I mean, these things that are quite unpredictable, people still could blame me for it, and so
Yeah, absolutely.
I made the decision to keep my pregnancy not only a secret from social media, but literally I mean, I had friends, which most of my friends are virtual. Like I have
Mhm.
one local friend. So, and she knew we were pregnant at the same time, but everyone, I was like, I didn't tell my mom. I love my mom, just keep in mind. But, I just had so much trauma and I just did honestly trust issues. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I don't trust, I know no one can persuade me to do something different, but I don't need your input. I don't need people's stuff. And that's a me thing. I had to explain this to my family because I did end up telling them I was pregnant on Christmas Eve and I was 38 weeks pregnant. So I
Wow.
every every holiday because I went through like I got pregnant in April, so I went through almost every big thing like Fourth of July and like we would go to
Mhm.
my mom's all the time. Now being plus size, I was able to like
Mm.
hide it a little bit. I just know how to like suck in and like do. I know how to do. I have baggy clothes,
Yep.
but my mom did end up saying, she's like, I was wondering why your face wasn't getting any bigger. Like, cause she could see, like, I was getting a little bigger, but I don't bloat much in my
Mm.
face when I'm pregnant. So, yeah, but I was just, so every week, every holiday, my husband's like, I can tell your mom yet. I'm like, I don't feel ready. And another philosophy of mine, I hear a lot of people, I've heard people say, they say a full body yes. Mine was, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. Like
Yeah.
straight up. I
Yes.
just was too scared and I don't like being like super black and white, but that I just knew I had to protect myself. And every time I thought about telling not just my mom, I mean anybody, people that when I ended up telling certain people that I was like just generally scared of telling everybody. I remember telling like my uncle and my grandpa on Christmas Eve as well, and they were just so happy. And I almost felt like they weren't mad at me or anything. I was almost sad that I kept it from them because I was like, wow, they would have been such a great support. But I was like, it's fine. I did what I had to do. I probably wouldn't do it again, but I know I have people. I'm different now. I set boundaries different, and people know me differently now. And that was before I was still like people knew me as that people pleaser. And I was like, pregnancy isn't the time that I know how to set boundaries. And I hate that so many of us get that's when we do. But so I'm not suggesting just be Kylie Jenner in and out here, okay? But that's what I did.
Right.
So um it definitely wasn't for the I don't think Kylie did it for that either. Look, I think people probably thought she did, but dude, looking back, I get it. Like she wanted her privacy, dude.
Yeah.
I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So I I went back and forth on, I mean, I knew I was going to free birth basically, but there was like, I knew about at this point, like underground unlicensed midwives and birth keepers. Like I was way more exposed. This point, I was pretty much like the world was my oyster. I knew you have so many options. You really do. It might
Yeah.
take digging. Some people might have scarce options, but you probably have way more than you realize. However, I had a friend tell me about a story, her birth story with a local radical birth keeper or something like that. One of the only ones around here. And she had said something snarky to her. And she's like, oh, it's no big deal. And I was like, well, that would be a big deal to me. And I was like, you know what? That just confirms. I just think I need to just keep doing my thing. And so I said, okay, I feel good about it. I don't feel for me, I didn't feel like a midwife gave an extra level of comfort again. I was like, am I willing to allow that person into my space as a safety blanket for society? Really, that was just me. And it got to a point where I wasn't. And that's why I kept it secret. So my husband was kind of like, but thankfully he really is like, I mean, he was even like that with the first home birth. Like he's never I don't want to say fully like woohoo, but he's also like, I will support you.
Right.
I might think you're crazy. I might, but she doesn't say it like that, but so he might not understand, but he sees me reading the books. He knows I research, right? So he ends up being fully on board because I think at one point he's like, "So are you hiring a midwife or not?" I was like, "No." And then we just moved forward. So,
Yeah.
that feedback, I took a birth course with Ashley Whitting. I don't know if you know her. She does she had a free birth after two cesareans in Australia. She's did I say free birth VBAC? Yeah, after two cesareans. Um, and she's plus size, so that's why I connected with her.
Oh,
And
Ashley Winning. Yes, 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 yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
actually had her on
yeah.
the podcast. Yes, I have an episode
Mm.
recorded with her. I got to hear
I
her
probably and I'm
beautiful
sure,
story too.
yeah, and I probably listened to it. I'm sure, like I've listened to her story like eight. I've listened to yours too a couple times. I'm like, I feel like I almost know all these women's stories by heart. So I took my her birth course. Gosh, she's got two now. It's the home birth feedback group mentoring, or I think that's what it's
Love
called. But
it.
yeah, so what I loved, I mean, her course was great, but I would just spend so much time on Zoom with her. And so one of the things I want to like add, I took notes because there were things I wanted to like give to women is that um what I did this time, even though it wasn't all in person, I did create a support system. Like I really, so like the first time where I was like, I didn't think I really had many people who would have supported my choices. Maybe they would have, but I didn't feel confident that they would. This time I went to the people ahead of time that I knew, like your friends that are not going to be like, "Are you stupid for wanting a home birth?" Like, or that aren't going to judge you if something does go wrong, or if you change your mind. So I went to those like maybe 10 people. Ashley was one of them, but I leaned into that. I wouldn't say I took advantage of it, but I leaned into it and embraced what support I had um, of the people I knew I could trust. And
Yep.
so, and then I just did, as always, listen to the podcast, all the things. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think if I did anything else. I took a birth worker course, which also occupied my time. So I was like, I love birth. I'm going to totally turn this into a business one day. Still haven't
Love
done that,
it.
but it's coming.
Love
Um,
that.
yes, thank you. Um and yeah, I did this birth like vision. What do they call it? Like, like where you're
Like a
journaling about what you want your birth to look like.
okay, yes.
And and it almost turned out like almost exactly like that, which is so crazy. So when I went into labor, I totally did not think, first of all, I moved into this apartment 2 days after I gave birth. Okay. It's just across the street from where I gave birth to her. So this is just a bigger apartment in the same complex. But my mom, when I finally told my mom, right, I was 38 weeks, I gave birth the day after my due date.
Hmm.
So my mom asked me like 2 days before I go into labor, she's like, "Do you think you're going to be going to labor anytime soon? Like, do I need to come get the kids?" I was like, "Dude, no. Dude, I'm going to go to 42 weeks." And I was like, "We need me to go to 42 weeks. Like, what woman is like, we need to go to 42 weeks?" I was like, "I can't give birth." I was like, "I cannot give birth when I'm about to move. Are you serious? Like, we have to
Mm.
manifest me staying pregnant for another week at least." This is like or what day did I give birth? I think I gave birth Sunday. Oh, this is probably like Friday or something like that. That's so she was like, "I'll get the kids for the weekend," and she totally could have, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but then I ended up going into labor like on 40 weeks. It was when I started like experiencing contractions. In total, I would say like active was 10 hours or no, active I would say is 4 hours. In total, it was like 10 hours from like first contraction. I went into
Hmm.
labor watching Shrek, which my kids were like had watched 5,000 million times.
Yep.
Um, I like to add the detail of like I did not have back labor. Hallelujah. I did have my contractions were way more painful this time. I don't know why. Maybe because it was shorter, like it was a more short,
Hmm.
intense labor. Like active full on labor was 12 hours the first time. This was 4. I don't know. But the first contraction I felt was in my back. And that's when I count when labor started because I was like, that's different. That don't feel like a Braxton hit. And to me, when I think about it, it's like the universe like knocked, like, all right. Or my daughter, like I just think of it as like a knock, like it's time. And that because I remember when I felt that. And then the next 6 hours I was in denial. Like I knew, but I didn't want it to be because I kept telling myself, I can't move with this baby. I mean, it was fine. It
Yeah.
all ended up
Yeah.
being fine. But so I like take a shower, I take magnesium, I never would have thought I'd be the one to like try to stop my labor, but here I was like, I can stop it. Um, but my sister was the only other person. My sister didn't know I was pregnant the whole time because she's like the one person I really, really trust as well. But she doesn't live close. And so she was like the only other person I was like considering calling to be there during the birth. But I just kept being in denial so long. By the time I was in active labor, it would have took her too long to get here. So,
Yeah.
which was it was totally fine. But so yeah, I just swayed, did basically what I did the first time, sat in quiet. My husband just stayed up all night with me. And it was, like I said, it was painful. I'm not the pain-free lady, but the contractions with the first feedback were more wave-like though. So I'm not sure. I didn't realize till this birth, because it was my second vaginal birth, that you can actually experience contractions quite differently, but also I induced with castor oil, so really who knows,
Hmm.
this, but um, but I ended up going to transition at like 5:40 in the morning. I have a lot of my birth on cam or like the labor at the end on video. And I like threw up in a dog bowl, not my dog's like food bowl, but like I had a big dog bowl that we
Right.
ended up, we put the placenta in and everything after, and we just threw it away. Like it was just,
Hmm.
that was like the medical waste bowl. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I get on all fours because the whole labor I'd been pretty much standing up, taking showers. And then this, honestly, I didn't love being on all fours the same way I did the last labor this time. But I think my body just told me, like, this is what's going to get you done. Because as soon as I finally just got on the bed, we had a mattress in the living room. Once I finally did that, um, it was like, it just took me time. So my water broke, and we didn't know, the lights were all dim, like it was so dark in the house. It's like 5 something in the morning.
Yeah.
Everything kind of smells anyway, like there's smells everywhere. But
Yes.
she had there was meconium, and I didn't know until after she was born, which thankfully I didn't know, because I just wondered if I would have stressed about it.
Right.
But and none of my other kids had meconium,
Hmm.
so that was new. And basically she just, I wouldn't say it's fetal ejection reflux, but I definitely could feel like the last time I had people screaming at me, I just, there was, I mean, there was, I couldn't be in my body at all. And
Yeah.
this time I literally, obviously I don't know what dilation I was, but I'm telling you, I could feel myself open up. And I didn't do many visualizations like, oh, a flower. I mean, I did some stuff, sure. Like I
Yeah.
did a lot of inner work and things. I never sat there and like visualized a flower, but when I tell you that's what it felt like, of that, I'm sure that's probably why they came up with it, because it really
Yeah.
felt like I just bloomed, and
Right.
I could feel her come down. And then what was really cool is like, I tore really bad the first time, which also I was on my back and all the just craziness. But this time I was on all fours and I was able to control it. And my body did want a fetal ejection reflux, I guess. I'm sure there's a degree where you can't control it, but I was able
Hmm.
to hold her back a little bit. So I didn't, I mean, maybe I tore, honestly. I can't tell you because I don't know. But
Yeah.
to me, I don't think I tore.
Yeah.
I after because yeah, so she ends up shooting out. My youngest, or yeah, at the time, my middle child, now he had woke up like 5 seconds or 2 minutes before she was born,
Oh,
literally.
wow.
And he screamed for a second. He was like, ah, and then he was fine. He was totally fine. I don't think he's traumatized.
Yeah.
And then like a minute later, my oldest wakes up, and um it was amazing. Like I just, the full family moment. I mean, just us, like this restoration, like that was the spot, that was the same room I was supposed to give birth, or, supposed to give birth for the original home birth.
Hmm.
And then, it was just everything I needed. It was what our marriage needed. And I'm not saying we did not have a baby to like fix things or anything like
Right.
that. But this, all the work we put in before that really, really changed the game for us. And it was like after she was born, I remember even thinking, just for me and my story, like the validation that it was good that I didn't hire somebody, because like she had meconium, and like my contractions were central down low. I didn't feel like I was rupturing. That's not what was happening. They was just like the period cramp
Yeah.
contractions. And I just could tell if I had hired somebody that might not have turned out like we probably would have ended up back in the hospital. And it just solidified that everything for me, I made the right choices for our family. My baby was great. We were intact. Everything was beautiful. And then even the recovery, I think my kids are starting to get a little feral up there, so I might be
Yeah.
having to like wrap up. But
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear them.
That's okay. Don't even
Um,
worry about it.
so um, even so, the recovery, I would say I totally pushed my when we moved, no one was making me do anything, but I totally pushed myself and I knew it. Just saying, like, I was like, at this point, I'm not saying I'm a know-it-all, but I kind of know the foundations of a lot of, I think most of us birth workers, when you get to that space, you're like, I know I need to rest for like 5 weeks by the bed or whatever, but I just, but even with that, like my vagina did not hurt, dude. My vagina hurts so, and I'm saying that like so boldly because I don't know, I don't know all the different factors. The only thing, my whole body hurt. Like I felt like I ran a marathon and like got beat up. I think that's probably from the adrenaline. Like I was holding my body up on the couch too for like probably 20 or to 40 minutes, maybe like in that all fours position using probably every bit of muscle I have.
Yeah.
But I was willing to take feeling sore over like the job was just like I was like, yes, man. I just like, I don't know. I was so happy about that. So
Yeah.
even despite pushing myself to like, the only thing I really use, I use a couple icicle pads or whatever and dermaplast.
Uh-huh.
Because a lot of people I think get scared about like free birth and like, what if you tear? And I might have
Yeah.
tore, like, I think when I pushed myself, I might have like open something a little because I remember bleeding, picking up a little, and then it like burned like maybe a week later. Like it took a bit. So I think it was like I rested for a few days, the initial move. So I literally was like, I have a newborn. But after like we kind of got established for a week, I totally pushed myself. And then I was like, okay, let me calm down. And that's when I sprayed the dermaplast and I like took some supplements. And then things just like were on the up and up from there. And so I think, obviously you always got to trust your intuition. If you feel like your baby needs to be seen, if you feel like in labor, and I always told myself that I was never like a free birth or nothing. If I
Mhm.
was 35 weeks pregnant and I was taking my blood pressure randomly and I would log it, and there was things I would do to help me feel more in control. But ultimately, I felt comfortable with my choices. And I was definitely like, I'm not willing to risk anything for the sake of whatever. I'm just going to follow my gut and just just have faith really because at some point the worrying became like negatively impacted. I think there is a level of worry that is totally beneficial. There's a reason we have
Yeah.
that, but there became a point where I was like, all right, it's time to just get in the zone, get excited, like, and that's when I would build my birth cart. And like my little side cart, it was there during the birth, and I had all my stuff, my tinctures, and I didn't end up using half the stuff, but it was nice to know. I felt like there was that's what we can control, right? Like having things that make us feel comfortable. And that's what I focused on at the end. And that's when I finally think I could tell my mom. I think when I finally got out of that worry and I was like, okay, now I can just focus on all the good things. I think that's when I finally could just release some of that tension and just tell some of the people that were close to me. Um, but it all turned out great. And now, well, you'll probably ask me some questions, so I'll stop. So you could, because I think it'll be like what I'm doing now. But yeah.
No, I love that. And I think that you just hit on a great point. And it's like control the controllables that you can control that are within your control and, release the rest. Because if you're so focused on just like, okay, I got to make sure I don't tear. Okay, I got to make sure that I don't hemorrhage. Okay, I got to make sure this doesn't happen. Well, we never know. Like, we can do all the things to try to prevent something happening. But at the end of the day, birth is ultimately unpredictable and nobody can say exactly how it's going to go. So just controlling the things that you literally can only control and letting go of the rest. I mean, would you say that that's like a fair thing to suggest for people who are planning, a VBAC?
Yeah. And also that, like, I think just briefly that sometimes, well, knowing your options, right? I think anyone that's listened to your podcast knows, like, obviously, you don't just have to do one or the other or whatever, but knowing your options and knowing that when you take responsibility, and acceptance over whatever path, if you decide to birth in the hospital, you decide to birth in a birth center, you decide to birth at home, um, it's not a burden to take on that responsibility of your choice. It actually gives you freedom, and it that's what helps you heal in postpartum. I'm big on self-healing. I think it takes a village to having support, but like
Hmm.
that healing that you could do for yourself is like, going forward, am I making decisions based on what I want, what makes me feel good? Because if I'm not, I still am going to be, even if I'm making the decisions for someone else, I'm the one making the decision, and I'm going to be the one that has to deal with the after effects. Not the midwife's not dealing. I mean, to a degree, sure, they deal with some of it, but whatever happened to me, I'm dealing with, right? She's
Yeah.
not, you know?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think like you talked about before is like a lot of times what we do is we give this decision making power away to the OBs, to the midwives, to even sometimes doulas. Clients come to me and
or
ask me, what do you think
husbands,
I should do? Husbands, exactly. But it's like, who is going to be the one that is ultimately living with that decision that you make? And it's going to be you. And it does feel like a huge, I guess like pressure to have to take on for yourself, but that's what we as women, as people who can get pregnant, that's what we just have to do. And,
mhm,
being okay with that decision, because if you decide to give that decision making power to your OB, to your midwife, to your doula, to your husband, then now you have somebody to blame. But I don't feel like that's necessarily the right path to do. Obviously, everybody's entitled to take their own path. But if you're giving that power away to somebody else, then they make a decision that you don't align with. How can you blame them when you gave them that power? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's like taking on that radical responsibility, even though it is hard. Like I remember
mhm,
during my VBAC, my husband at first was like, are you sure this is safe? Like, are you sure you'll be okay? Are you sure like our baby's gonna be okay? Because everybody's telling you no. And it was like, no, I feel like this is right. I feel 100% like I feel educated. This just feels right. And, I think making sure that you are making a decision that aligns with your beliefs and that's going to work with your family, because there's ultimately no right one path to take. There's so many different like branches of paths that you can take. Like you said, whether it's like a hospital birth, a home birth, a free birth, like whatever that looks like, and just being okay with it, being confident in that decision. So, somebody that's planning either hospital birth or free birth, what would you suggest to them? Like, that is the best things to do for themselves to help them feel like confident in their decision. Is there anything that you would suggest?
yeah. So get clear on your boundaries. Like I said, making boundaries in pregnancy is, I mean, it's hard. That's the time I've had to do it though. And so sometimes that means not talking. I wouldn't say not talking to people, but not having conversations with certain people. So if
Hmm.
you have a, cousin that's like a nurse practitioner that thinks once a C-section, always a C-section, just don't talk. You don't
Yeah.
have to talk to people. It's like that's a boundary. It's okay. It's okay to prioritize yourself. So get clear on your boundaries. That's just like an example, but also really build the support team that respects your decisions. And I know many of us might not have that in person. So seriously, utilize the internet to the best of your advantage. It can be scary, it can be
Hmm.
crazy, it could also be catty. I understand, but I'm very much I was very much those balls to the walls. I joined the groups. I read books. You can utilize a lot of free resources like podcasting, journaling, but going back to the support system, find these people on Instagram. Like find the VBAC moms on Instagram. They give you a lot of these women give you their stuff and go DM them. I love when people DM me like wanting to talk about it because it feels like that gives me purpose outside of
Hmm.
my kids, right? Like I love helping other women. So when you can build that support system, like it's not going to come to you. You have to build it. You
Yeah.
have to build it yourself. So
Yep.
find people that you find trustworthy. And also when you were saying, when we were talking about like that decision making thing earlier, I also want to say, I think most people probably consider their spouse this person, but I want to say too, like when we, like if we're in a time where we can't take that radical decision making, like find make sure you establish that person, whether it's the doula or husband or something, like super in advance that can't, because if I say I was like to transfer during my free birth, like my husband had a clear understanding, like he was equipped. Now if something would have went crazy in that birth, I do feel confident that like he would have been like, oh, like this is my wife, like no, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh yeah.
So try to find that one person in person. If you can find one person that can, that really can be like your sidekick if something goes south, which obviously we never hope happens, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
Definitely.
support is
No.
so important.
It really is because sometimes it can make or break your decision to move forward because some people just feel like they can't go on if nobody supports them along the way, which I get it. And it's totally valid, because it's hard to do it alone. Like, I will never forget everybody telling me no during my experience and my husband being that sounding board that I can always, always lean on to just instill even more confidence in me because it does. It instills confidence in you that might be lacking because so many people are telling you, no, 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 this is dumb. You should not do this. And then when you have that solid person on your other ear just telling you, I trust you. If you feel like this is the right decision, we're doing this. I'm behind you 100%. That can make a world of difference. And if it's not, a spouse, partner, find that online community. I actually, and I don't know if I've talked to you about this yet, but I'm creating, which I'm going to launch in January, is a VBAC community that is going to just take on all these VBAC moms, whoever feels aligned with my views and values and belief systems. I'm going to just take them in and I want to just love on them and nurture them because I felt so alone on my journey. I don't want women to feel that way because I would leave doctor's appointments bawling my eyes out and wondering if I was making the right choice. And we need that support so much. And
Mm-hmm.
if I can support just one person on their journey, then that's going to have, I feel like, that domino effect where they're going to in turn support somebody that, might not have the support. And it's just going to keep building and building. We're going to change this world like one birth at a time.
Yes. Well, that's
Yeah.
why I say too, like that's what keeps me going because it's not just the feedback link or Ashley or any of these people's stories. It's all of them.
Yeah.
Like I want more to listen to. Like I need more birth
Hmm.
stories, people. Like share your birth
Yes.
stories, ladies. I'm
Yes.
gonna show up to your house like in the peephole, share your birth story. Where's your birth story? because because I love them. So we need,
Yeah.
yeah, and not only, but yes, I'm so excited. That's so exciting. I'm so
Yeah.
happy
Thank
for you. I
you.
can't wait.
Me too. Thank you. And
Mhm.
and then it's not to say that I don't love the VBAC link. I love the VBAC link. I always tell people like there's so many stories on the VBAC link, VBAC facts. I love all of that, and
Yes.
whatever is out there, and I even like I want them to share my stuff. I want to share their stuff because we just need that community. There just has to
Hmm.
be a community. Otherwise, we could just feel so alone out there and it's hard. So, anyways,
Yeah.
enough about that. I could go like on forever.
I know.
Community, community, community.
Community. Yes, that's my big thing.
Yeah. So, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything that you would love to leave this audience with as like just some last thoughts or suggestions before we end this call?
Ah, I don't know. No, I feel like I cover, I don't know, like I said, a lot. So this was really fun though. I really, I love everything that you're doing. And thank you for giving me the space to share because, like I said, I mean, I've shared on all other platforms, but it's like you can just never hear enough of it. You really can't. And I know that what they say, peace on earth begins at birth. That's one
Whew.
of my favorite quotes.
Yes.
Yeah. Because if we could get moms like on like a good path postpartum, like I know how different my postpartums, despite having three kids under four, because
Hmm.
my oldest just turned four, by the way. So I was dealing with a 3-year-old and under 2-year-old, like a 1.5-year-old and a newborn. And it was hard. Oh my gosh,
Hmm.
it was still my best postpartum experience
Hmm.
because, so yeah, peace on earth begins at birth. I think if we could just keep focusing, keep not giving up, yes, keep supporting all the birth spaces that we can that are
Yes.
just, we all need it. Like, yes, seriously. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I so agree with that statement. Like even though like I had four kids after, I had my VBAC, literally the best experience I've ever had. Like even though I should have been, from what everybody says, tired and just like depressed or whatever, I felt so good. I felt like I was ready to run a marathon. I was like, this is
I know, right?
amazing. Yeah. So yes, I totally agree. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I cannot wait for people to hear this and then to connect with you. So if people want to connect with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm really active on Instagram these days. So my Instagram it's actually the same as my YouTube and TikTok. So I kind of post all the same stuff. So whatever platform you like, it's at the Lizzy Morris. Now Lizzie's with the Y, so Lizzy, the Lizzy Morris. Um, and yeah, you can DM me, chat with me. I love to connect with people over there.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate you. And I feel like, I don't know, we're going to see so much more of you because your passion, I could just feel it in you for helping women along
Yes.
their journey. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Petra.
Of course. I hope you loved that episode as much as I loved creating it. And if you want to learn more, be sure to download your free VBAC resource guide for even more tips and advice at birthingcometrue.com/VBAC guide. And don't forget to subscribe to the Journey to VBAC so you never miss an episode. Until next time, trust in yourself and remember, you are amazing no matter how your birth unfolds. Bye for now.